presentations, and I hope you enjoyed so far our conference today here at Cluj International Airport. Now I would kindly like to have your attention because I'm going to introduce the panel speakers in session 2 of today's conference. Again, our distinguished moderator will be Professor Andreas Papatheodorou, President of the Hellenic Aviation Society, whom we are very glad to have here today. Along with him, we have 3 other panel speakers in the persons of Riccardo Lambiris, Chairman of Athens International Airport. Welcome on the stage. Then I would kindly ask George Lioumpis, General Manager of Sky Express Airline, to also join us on the stage. And last but not least, I will ask Mr. Trunaru Dragos, Airworthiness Director at Civil Aviation Authority in Romania, to also join us for the discussions in this panel too. And now I give the word to Andreas, Professor Andreas Papatheodorou, to start discussions in this second session. Thank you.
Excellent. So thank you so much. I hope that you all enjoyed the previous discussion. It was quite insightful. Before we had 2 airport representatives plus a representative of the ground handling system. Now we have a different panel, 3 very esteemed personalities, one representing the most important airport in Greece, also a very promising and fast-growing airline in Greece, and we also have a representative of the local regulator here in Romania. So, Riccardo, you are the chairman of Athens International Airport, a real success story in Greece and beyond. I would like to ask you first of all to make a brief presentation of the company. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you very much for David and Kostas organizing this and inviting me to this prestigious event. I'm extremely happy to be here. I must say I've been extremely impressed with the developments at Cluj Airport. I mean, from 32,000 to 3 million. I guess I will sadden again my friend Kadri, because it's very hard for him and for us, of course, to achieve these growth multiples. However, my friend Kadri should take comfort in the fact that he'll always be a bigger airport than Athens Airport, right? So having said that, we've been in operations since 2001, slightly more than 20 years that is. We're an airport with maximum capacity at the moment of 26 million, although we can grow up to 50. We are the main entry point into Athens and effectively Greece. The current 8 months have been quite good. We've been roughly about 15% down compared to 2019, which is our reference year. However, for the summer period, it's better. It's about 5.5%. We're carbon neutral since 2016, and we are targeting to become zero carbon in 2025 through a huge PV plant network. And we are also a private partnership between the state and private investors.
Thank you so much. And George, fast-growing airline in Greece, Sky Express, please.
Thank you. Thank you also, David, Kostas, for the pleasant and very insightful discussions that we are having today, for the invitation as well. So Sky Express is not a new airline. It is coming from about 15 years ago, but it is indeed that over the last 5 years that it has developed and continues to develop into the airline that we are today, which comprises of 9 Airbus Neos, effectively 8 plus 1, 8 Neos, 1 CEO, and 12 ATRs, 6 of them the 72-600, which are also of the newest technology. So we follow as well the path of sustainability, of green ops, which we implement on each and every flight that we perform. And we continue on this growth path in the same manner, in the same sense, in the same direction, by adding next year in March 2 A321 Neos as well, so that we fulfill the expansion plan that has been put in place. We are also very happy that it has been a summer season where our Greek airports and the Greek carriers overall have stood up to the expectations of the visitors in Greece, and we definitely hope and believe that also in the future we give them the service and the quality that will allow them to go back to their countries at the end of this summer season in order to communicate to their friends, to their families, to their colleagues, a very good experience. We are also very happy that we are in good cooperation with Athens International Airport. From our side, it is a fact we support the growth and the return to the 2019 benchmark, which as it has been put by everybody. And we look forward to expand our network. Our network currently covers 34 destinations in Greece and currently 5 scheduled destinations in Europe, which will become 8 as of the winter season, plus another almost 20 airports that we facilitate for operations of charter business throughout the summer season. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much. And Trunaru, a few words about the Romanian CAA, please.
Hello, everybody. I would like to say that I have to admit that I'm a rather old guy because I don't really or fully believe in the virtual environment. Saying that, I'm very delighted that this meeting is a face-to-face meeting. It started again to seem to be a normal life, like as I have it before. And with that, hope that the aviation will gain again his role on moving people, having the share of the transport that it has before. There were some tough years lately. The industry was hit first, but also the authority was in some difficulty. And I'm not talking about the budget problems, I'm not talking about the staffing problems, but we discovered that a lot of things that we take it from granted were not as such as we thought. So there were a lot of gaps, there were a lot of missing links. We strive to put them on their place in the pandemic times. Sometimes we managed to do it. Some things were not put in place, and they are still not in place. We thought that, let's say, starting this year, everything will be okay. There are some other problems that rise, starting with the economical crisis. It seems that it even hits our operators in the last days. So we have to pay attention on that, because I consider that the crisis is not still over, and this connectivity concept will be a main motor to give satisfaction to the persons. Because in rough times, the persons are prone to not to travel so much. So we have to gain their confidence, meaning reducing times of waiting, providing better services, and this connectivity will be able to do it by cooperation between all kind of organization, between airports, between airlines, authorities if you want, because we like to see it that way, and hope that in a very short time the life will be as normal as we think it should be.
Thank you so much, and I think we can now proceed to some insightful questions related to the topic of our conference, regional cooperation and connectivity. So, Riccardo, I'll start with you. As we all know, Athens International Airport has multiple roles to play. We have point-to-point traffic because Athens is a well-known city for both business and leisure tourism. At the same time, Genoa Alliance increasingly, Sky Express, they have hub-and-spoke operations out of Athens International Airport. PSO routes, public service obligation routes, are quite important and provide a lifeline to a number of remote communities. So how do you envisage the role of Athens International Airport in terms of regional connectivity?
Thank you, Andreas, for the question. Well, regional connectivity is obviously very important. It develops local communities and societies, increases the GDP of the countries which are there, and it helps cultural exchange, which is also very important, and more important so, I think, in these times where, as my friend Trunaru said, we are very much behind the screen, right? We are, however, regional connectivity is challenged significantly on the sustainability front, and we discussed this quite a bit in the boarding. And I think that's one of the things we need to keep in mind in terms of how we move forward. Obviously, being the main entry point in Greece, it is a very big responsibility. Obviously, tourism, as you probably know, is one of our main industries. It's roughly 20% of GDP, or if you want to put it differently, it's roughly 1 out of every 4 euros generated in the country is related to tourism activity, either directly or indirectly, so that's very important. The Athens airport itself is about 38% of total airborne capacity and 4.4% of GDP in the country, according to the Athens University of Economics and Business. So it's a big weight on our plate. So our primary aim is to support the country and Athens as a city as well. And for this, we have a two-level strategy. The first, obviously, is trying to increase routes. And I'm coming back to what was discussed earlier. So Cluj, I know we had a direct flight. I hope we'll be able to convince one of our carriers to go direct to Cluj. It will make our life easier for next year's conference as well. And we are doing this also through an incentive package to try and make it more enticing for airlines to undertake this route generation, which obviously for them as well has a financial cost and a financial risk. So we need to be very mindful of that. So to a certain extent, we're saying there's some type of burden sharing in taking this risk. The other thing is trying to increase the attractiveness of Athens as a destination, which is very important. And for this, there is a strong marketing push. And from this perspective, we are working very hard with the City of Athens and a number of other stakeholders to try and generate this increased attractivity. On your last point, I think it was on the PSO routes. Obviously, Greece being an island country with so many islands and so many remote locations, connectivity is even more important for these islands. So having PSO routes, I think out of Athens, we probably have 11 out of the 27 or 28 routes. I think you have some as well. You support that as well. It's very, very important, and for that reason, we are not charging the airport development fee to try and help on this front. So all in all, a very, very important role and quite heavy on our shoulders.
Thank you so much. And building on what Riccardo has already said about PSOs, Sky Express is a major operator of PSO routes. How do you ensure connectivity, George?
That is correct. So PSOs are in reality perform a social role, most of all. It is the way to connect the local residents, especially during winter season. And it is even more important when we speak about elderly people, which is the typical mix of population with elderly people or with people who need to be taken care of primarily for health reasons. So I would say that, yes, Sky Express has been into the PSO routes since 2016 and onwards. It will keep and will attempt to regain, as there is an ongoing tender during this period for these 28 routes in total. We also had a very educative year during this summer, especially since the introduction of the Airbus fleet and the international routes has multiplied the number of connecting passengers flying into Athens, first of all, and then going forward further to our islands. So again, we had to grow our experience on dealing with these connecting passengers. We had the support from the airport. We also had to deal with external factors which would have an impact on our daily operations. And I'm talking primarily about the difficulties that some of the big Northern Europe airports had to deal with during this summer season, especially up until mid-July, when some decisions were taken, some wise decisions, I would say, were taken to reduce capacity in these airports. This had a subsequent positive, I would say, impact also on operations in Athens, as it relieved a percentage of passengers who would either have missed their luggage or have missed their connecting flight due to delays from the outbound flights from Europe. So overall, connectivity is important. It is important for social reasons, obviously for tourism purposes as well, as there is a number of businesses which operate in the islands, and they expect during the summer season to be able to make it for the winter season. So we need to keep working closely with the handlers, with the airports, with the authorities as well, in order to improve the overall experience and the service.
Thank you. And Trunaru, building on the discussion we have here, the PSO route scheme in Greece is run and by the Hellenic Civil Aviation Authority. The tender was formally issued by the Hellenic Civil Aviation Authority. What do you think is the role of the Romanian CAA in supporting remote communities in Romania?
Well, first of all, the tradition is in the region, amongst the authority in the region, is not as high as I personally think it could be. So if you think about Romania only, okay, the country is not so small, not so big. If you are thinking regionally, the aviation is quite the first choice of the person, but the links between the authorities, speaking for my point of view, is not as closed as, let's say, in the Western countries. Maybe it hasn't enough background, but this can be a lot improved. So we can promote some links, because we are in a position that we have contacts in all area of aviation. So we can provide links and act like a hub for the different players in the aviation, to put them together in contact, to help them to make plans with them, in order to increase the connectivity, the number of passengers, the reachable places that can be exploited on that, to increase the ease of business between the countries. So it might be a general role of the authority, a part of, let's say, what it's doing on a daily basis.
Great, thank you so much. And obviously, beyond remote communities, it's important to talk about tourism in a more explicit manner. A student of mine recently completed her PhD thesis on the importance of regional connectivity for tourism, using the Athens Tourism Partnership as a case study. So I would like to ask Riccardo whether you would like to elaborate further on that. You briefly touched on that before, but I think it's a best practice, and it's worth talking about that.
Yeah, if we look a bit historically about how tourism has evolved in Athens and in Greece, as you probably know, 2011 we were in a big financial crisis, and we saw our passenger numbers going down, which was quite worrying. we were waiting to see whether it was, something which would just pass on or. But 2012 came and we saw that numbers were going down. So what we did, we said we need to do something about this. So we effectively took the approach that we needed to fix the tarnished image of the country and of Athens and try and be outworthy and promoting the city. And this was very important. And couple this with some, again, incentive packages, obviously, to try and make airlines interested again in Athens. The first positive results we felt were in the first half of 2013. And then I must say from 2014 onwards, it was phenomenal until 2019. Effectively, where we saw growth of magnitude of 104%, 140% in foreign resident arrivals, and most interestingly, and this is qualitative metric I would say, which is quite interesting, is 700% in terms of city break travelers, which means that we were able to change, I would say, the type of tourism, the type of personalities that are coming to Athens. So not only your backpacker, but also people who just come over for the weekend. And it's also important to have a 365-day tourism, not just the summer period. And then, of course, we got the absolute disruptor in 2019, COVID, which I think and I believe we did a good job in our approach to that. We were lucky as well that Greece was one of the first countries opening up out of the pandemic, so making travel easier, and that obviously helped us a lot. However, when I look at the future, there are a number of headwinds which are quite concerning. One being fuel prices. We've seen prices rise. We're seeing that this is impacting airlines. Some of the airlines, their hedging strategies are finishing at the end of the year, so it's very hard to re-hedge at prices which make sense. So this obviously will go to the end consumer. We have labor market shifts, both in volume, so finding people to be able to go to the to fill in the less capacity, but also we are seeing increases in salary prices. Again, this is putting pressure on the industry. Inflation and maybe even stagflation in a few countries. Recession, some countries are in recession, others are going there. And also you have the worst, I would say, of everything, geopolitical black swans. I mean, we've got Ukraine, touch wood, we never get Taiwan. Who knows what will come out from the Middle East? So, all of these are major disruptors. I must say, however, that there are a number of nice tailwinds. Hopefully, COVID-19, we've learned how to manage it. People are more accustomed to it. So hopefully, China is going to open up, and this will be a huge inflow of tourism globally and passengers generally, and opening up business. I mean, the Chinese economy has grown significantly less than was expected. So again, this I think will give an impetus to see more travel and connectivity. There's another trend which I quite like personally. And again, it's around what Mr. Dragos said. There's a trend back to the office. So this will enhance business travel. People want to connect, and business travel, as you all know, is very important in terms of economics. So hopefully that will give a positive push. And I don't know about many other countries, but at least in Greece we had a huge investment in tourism infrastructure. So big funds and big strategics who came in, bought infrastructure, they are renovating it. So obviously these will put money behind to try and sustain their investments. So I think there are enough positive wins to take us into a good 2023.
Thank you so much. And likewise, George, what is a vision of Sky Express for the development of tourism in Greece and beyond?
First of all, the vision of the shareholder of Sky Express, which was deployed in around 2018, just before COVID arrived, and right after the induction of the whole world into the COVID era, there was the strategic decision to invest in the new technology of engines of the Airbus fleet. So first of all, the vision starts from offering a product which is closer to what we would call sustainable. So this is the first view on how we see tourism for the future. The future of tourism needs to be sustainable. And in Greece, there are certain movements going and investments going on overall, just like Mr. Lambiris described, on introducing renewable energy in multiple sectors and throughout the country. So for Sky Express, the sustainability part of operations is there. We have in our operations manuals specific actions that need to be taken on each and every flight so that we approach this path in the best way. This allows for the customer, the passenger, I would say the visitor overall, because the visitor does not see only the airline, he sees his whole travel, his whole journey, to be closer to green, which is not just an idea, it is a fact, and it is something that we'll keep on seeing in the future. Now, we also feel already the turbulence due to the, first of all, the price increase of the fuel. Secondly, the geopolitical constraints, which have a direct impact on airlines on the way that they fly. We are obliged not to utilize a certain part of the airspace, and this adds obviously also to the CAAs and to the Eurocontrol a further burden. This obviously affects further the overall experience, and we try to tackle this in constant cooperation with Eurocontrol. Now, we know that we are entering into a winter that is going to be difficult. There are different reasons for that. They have already been explained. What we need to do is to remain lean, as we are as an organization, and work further our partnerships with handlers, with other providers, with Airbus, with ATR, with CFM, with Pratt & Whitney, the MROs, to be able to perform better in a more economical way, and always keeping our safety levels to the maximum.
Thank you so much, George. And coming to Trunaru, I understand that the Civil Aviation Authority should also play a role in terms of tourist development. Perhaps that can be more complex. We saw earlier that Cluj Airport experienced a meteoric rise of its traffic in the post-liberalization period after the accession into the EU, because there were new opportunities. At the same time, we've seen that a number of airlines, especially incumbent airlines, faced serious trouble in the post-liberalization period. We've seen, for example, that airlines like Malef or Cyprus Airways had to go bust. At the same time, others like Royal Air Maroc managed to reinvent their model. What do you think is the role of Civil Aviation Authority in terms of promoting connectivity and tourist development?
Well, tourism is, at least for aviation, the tourism is a very lucrative business. But in the same time, competition is very strong. So in order to promote let's say, the regional interest, I think it's better to gather ourselves and make let's say, a common approach from the regional point of view, have a stronger voice, and to promote our own solutions as a group, instead of adhering to solutions proposed by other regions, which are, let's face it, stronger economically and can overtake easily small businesses here. Maybe that's why the small companies have difficulties here, but our role will be to support, not our as a loan authority, but our as a, let's say, aviation business in this region, to support both small businesses, or let's say big businesses for our countries, in order to take that profit from the tourism and keep it here or invest it also and develop in aviation, like new airports in Turkey are, like let's say new revival of a lot of small airports in Greece, in Romania, some of them. Maybe it's better to try to attract persons from neighboring countries, and this can be accomplished also by working together and have solutions, meaning real solutions. Okay, it might not be always the common interest in on that, but let's find the common interest and promote it like such. So,
thank you for that. And coming now back to Athens International Airport, Riccardo, it has a history of over 20 years now. When the airport started its operations, obviously the big thing was about successfully organizing the 2004 Olympic Games. It was a major milestone at the time. Nobody would have thought about the big financial and economic crisis that followed almost 10 years later after the start of the operations, and obviously COVID-19 was unimaginable. So how has the airport evolved through the years in terms of its vision, and how do you see the new strategy developing from now on with respect to connectivity?
Okay, I think I'd like to start with a few statistics, key facts, which I think sets the scene for airports and this how it will take us in the future. The aviation industry in total is, as you probably all know and was said earlier this morning, only worth 3% of total CO2 emissions, right? Airports themselves is 5% of that 3%, or 0.15%, right? Yet we are vilified in the media, and we have, as was discussed earlier, humongous pressures on the industry, on the aviation industry in general. And as strategy is obviously connectivity, it is very important to be able to sustain this. So we're the spotlight for, I believe, as an industry, for one very good reason, is because we haven't come up with a real tangible solution. Like, for instance, the car industry, they said, oh, we're going electric, and by the way, here's the first Tesla, here's the first Toyota, which is full electric, and we've done this. And it's hitting us in places where, for instance, we have this train versus plane discussion. And it's in the routes below 1,500 kilometers, so very relevant for our seminar here. So we have to somehow travel through this, navigate through this space where, it's constraining investment. I mean, we discussed earlier that there's a financial cost to this, and it will impact on tourism, and which is very important for us and very important for our business. So within here, we need to navigate both on a more, I say, collective view of things. We need to maybe ask ourselves if how we're progressing is going well, and every single airport or every single airline within the aviation industry, I feel, should be responding to this. So the first thing is we need to try to work with what we have. We need to communicate a clear and concise message, and I think we need to take a realistic approach to what is feasible. So to do this, I think both as an airport but also as an industry, we need to answer some fundamental questions, right? And once we've answered those, then we can go and have a discussion with the stakeholders. I'm saying all this because it's part of how we should be thinking about the next 20 years, which I think is very important. So, for instance, we mentioned it earlier, is sustainable aviation fuel, what do we need to do to make it a realistic option, right? It's a transitionary fuel, obviously. There are questions about volume. Can we ever get to the volumes? It's very expensive. There's cost attached to that on infrastructure. So, for instance, airports themselves, they need to invest potentially in infrastructure to be able to support this. There's always the food versus fuel discussion in some parts of the world. Then, there's the hydrogen discussion. Are we doing enough to support hydrogen technology, or the funds that we have, the limited funds being put into that. And how much efficiency margin is really in current, we've gone from using the Airbus logos from CO to NEO, but really if you look at what's happened in the car industry, the rate of pace of innovation has been significantly higher. So are we pushing our aircraft manufacturers enough and engine turbine manufacturers enough? And should we be providing them or helping them get grants from the various governments? So airports, I think, is one where we can have significant improvements because as was said earlier, it's probably easier, and I'll tell you very shortly what we're doing at Athens Airport. I acknowledge that some airports in the northern parts of Europe, for instance, cannot have photovoltaic plants, so it makes it more difficult. However, they can electrify, and I think that is a trend which is turning on. And we need to communicate to the world better what's happening. So coming back to my train versus plane example, which I think is very relevant to discussion here. The latest EU Commission report that I was able to locate said that it was 5 times more expensive and 10 times more damaging to the environment compared to our existing network of connectivity through air transport, which I think is very powerful. Or it translates in 2.7 billion euros per year of environmental damage for the 10,000 kilometers of high-speed train which are planned for the EU. And take into account that it takes 18 to 26 years to have this high net speed infrastructure. I don't think there's a discussion about whether train can really overcome air. So all in all, I'm saying this because we have embarked in what we call Route 2025 at the Athens airport to become carbon neutral. We are already zero, I always confuse this, zero carbon neutral, and we're going to zero carbon. I always confuse this, I'm sorry. We have 8 megawatts of power plants in operation, of PV plants, since 2011. We are currently expecting 16 megawatts to come on stream on the first quarter of 2023, sorry, and we have another planned for 40 megawatts plus battery storage to take us to carbon neutral. We obviously have working with our ground handlers to try and electrify, and one of them actually is a related company to the gentleman next to me, and they are already very far in their electrification journey, I must say, which is very encouraging. We have electrified our fleet of cars, they're either hybrid or electrified, and effectively we are working with various stakeholders in the city of Athens to become a sustainable destination, and I think we're going to come out with a very good result by the end of the year. So the strategy, if you wish, is definitely going forward, be on the sustainability path, because this will be required by passengers. I was extremely happy to hear George talking about sustainable destinations, because we were together in Rhodes last week, and one of the things we were discussing was, destinations need to be sustainable as well. So the future is green, but we need to do it in a sustainably, financially, and realistic way.
Thank you, Riccardo. And coming to George, you were one of the very few airlines that managed to grow during the pandemic. What's the way forward for you, and how would you consider environmental issues, as also mentioned by Riccardo?
Right. So we, first of all, are very active in the advocacy that goes on concerning the allocation of ETS, the geographical constraints of Greece with so many islands which cannot be connected via train, obviously. And then what is the benefit to have ships moving around? So we are very active through our participation in ERA, more specifically, as we hold also a position on the board of directors. So we are interested, we are active, and we want to be part of the decisions that will eventually be taken which will be relevant to the airlines and to the aviation sector in general. These decisions can only be taken by taking into account the view of the ecosystem of aviation. So this is number one. I wouldn't want to go back into the sustainability path. I've covered this a lot. Now, going forward, as I mentioned earlier, we are already active and flying to 5 big destinations in Europe on scheduled flights to Paris, to London, Brussels, Rome, and Larnaca. Then, as of end of October, we introduced Munich and Milan and Sofia. So we enter also the Balkan region. Now, during this summer season, we also faced some difficulties related to strikes in different countries in Europe where we fly to. So we were obliged also to move and to land elsewhere in a structured manner, not on a diversion or mandatory diversion way. This gave us the opportunity to meet, as an airline, smaller airports. So we met Maastricht, we met Southend, we also flew to Rotterdam instead of Amsterdam, also Luton. So this gave us a view on how it could be overall a better experience for our passengers if they would commute to a smaller airport, just like the very beautiful one that we are here in Cluj, and take the opportunity to fly out to another destination, whether it is a big hub or a regional city, and be on time, confirm your luggage is there, and offer a good experience also to the airline as an airport and as an infrastructure. I can only tell you that in Southend, which is a very small airport to the eastern coast of UK, there is a direct train station beside the runway. So you can move there from downtown London quickly and depart without any constraint. I think it's only EasyJet who flies there. Now, obviously, there are other reasons why an airline would prefer to fly to a bigger airport. It is a matter of positioning yourself, but overall, the key, let's say, point here is that in the future, it will be maybe the passengers who will drive airlines also to select more regional airports and connect from there to their next or intermediate or final destination. For the future, Sky Express will keep on adding fleet and new fleet, and especially with the Neo engines. So we have already ordered the 2 A321neos for March 2023, and we will continue on a similar path, serve scheduled routes, offer some capacity to charter operations, and then each winter add more scheduled routes, and so on and so forth. The pace with which we will grow is something that is more or less defined on a board level, and sometimes we are also, as management, surprised by the speed that we would need to integrate the growth of Sky Express. I believe that for this summer we did it efficiently and successfully. We doubled our passengers commuted, and we believe that if winter 2023 doesn't come up with something very, very much difficult, challenging, not to put it differently, it will only allow us to prepare ourselves, not just ourselves, the overall community, better ahead of the summer season 2023.
Great, thank you so much. And Trunaru, to grant an AOC, typically Civil Aviation Authority would look at safety issues. Of course, that's of primary importance. They would also look at the financial plan of an airline. Do you think that environmental considerations should also play a role in terms of airworthiness?
Sure it did. Unfortunately, the regulation as they are written today doesn't take too much into consideration. Okay, there are the regulation for the designing of the airplanes themselves, maybe some regulation for the airports, some, I don't know, about the infrastructure, but not of such importance that will be primordial for the granting of the AOC of the, let's say, approval for the aerodromes. It should be raised a little bit. I will tell you a story. 30 plus years ago, one of my professors in university has a prototype car, which was the model 2.5. I will not say the mark. But I asked him, what's this model 2.5? He says it's a prototype with 2.5 liter consumption. At that time, the average was around 10 liters. So the technology existed. This is the same case today. I'm pretty sure that a lot of technology are existing, but are either too expensive to put in place, or the economical interest is not to promote them. Recently, Airbus announced that they will be able to deliver hydrogen fuel engines in all the models in 2035 or something like that. So they know that something. In order to develop a full engine, you need some time. So they have the technology. Maybe it's not perfected as such. Again, the regulations itself and have to be pushed by the industry and by the states. Our role will be to convince the state, the politicians mean, which will be the better way to choose. Because, okay, let's face it, maybe the politician has their own interest, like not losing votes. The CAA has the primordial role to ensure safety. So from this point of view, it's somehow neutral, has no economical interest in the different companies, and can be a promoter of whatever they want. Why not promoting a better environment? But this cannot be accomplished without, let's say, the help of the politicians, which should put something in place to, let's say, help the emerging industry first, because they are right in saying, okay, you use the old technology, you produce a lot of pollution, now you are saying that you are not allowed to do it. You have to compensate this with something. And this should be the role of the authority, to convince the politician to make a level playing field for them to act as a promotion in the environment. Starting with the regulation and then some, let's say, long-term plans, if you want.
Great, thank you very much. And coming now to the issue of stakeholder management, typically, that's quite important for an airport in terms of dealing with both external stakeholders and internal stakeholders. Riccardo, Athens International Airport is majority owned by the state, but it's privately run. So what are the challenges and how do you deal with stakeholder management both internally and externally?
I think the Athens airport and generally the Greek aviation industry has been one of the best sectors in Greece, at least, to have been privatized. The Athens airport itself was a build-operate transfer model, so effectively the state retained a sizable stake, and it decided to hand effectively control to the private sector, who knows better how to run an airport. So effectively, we have an interesting shareholding structure because we have 55%, which is owned by two funds of the state, one of which is the privatization agency, and I'll come back to that very shortly. So together they own 55%, these two funds, and then we have sector operator, I should say, Aviation, which is German, and themselves held by a long-term pension fund, the Canadian pension fund PSP. And then we have a small shareholder, which is a local magnet, Mr. Kopelouzos. So effectively, an interesting shareholding structure, which has worked very well over time. I mean, you can see from the results of growth at the airport. And I think the reason why this happened is because the governance was very good, and there were clear expectations between the government and between the private shareholder of what was to be expected. So now we're probably going in the next phase where the state is going to dispose, I would say, 30% of the Athens airport. How they're going to do it is another question. They may be a trade sale, maybe an IPO. I cannot comment on that perspective. But I think if you look at it, we also have another very successful private initiative in Greece, where we privatized 14 regional airports, Fraport. And they acquired these 14 regional airports, and actually they've been doing extremely well. They were 12% up since 2019 in terms of traffic. So again, the state, I think, is extremely happy with the performance of the private sector. So all in all, stakeholder management is very important, and it's very important to set expectations very correctly. And like that, people know how to operate, and you give the ability to the private shareholder to deliver the added value that you would expect as a state, whereas the state has the ability to intervene if it needs to do so. So I must say, as my term as chairman and previously as CEO of the privatization agency, actually a shareholder in the Athens airport, I cannot remember of a serious friction issues between the shareholders and the way the state and the private operate, which is not the case in a number of other sectors, both in the country and through my privatization experience in numerous other countries.
Thank you so much. And George, likewise, how important is stakeholder management for you? You are an airline that is also vertically integrated. You have a ground handler within the entire group that might make things easier from a supply chain point of view, but of course there are other stakeholders to consider. What do you think about dealing with stakeholders?
Even though it's true, within the group of where Sky Express belongs as well, there are two entities which are the ground handling companies in Athens and in Greece overall. So still, we keep our Chinese walls, we audit them and inspect our ground handling entities in an independent manner, and we effectively take advantage of it so that we explore also the limits to which we can also address to other ground handling entities in Europe or elsewhere that we fly. So we are in close cooperation with them. We report everything, no matter if it is anything related to security, safety, or purely operational matters. We try to improve ourselves and themselves as well by explaining well the product. Sometimes the airlines do not explain well the product to the ground handler, and then the ground handler is not able to communicate further to the passengers rules or guidelines with respect to their presence at the check-in counters or at the gate. Now, apart from that, for the airline, a major stake is related to maintenance providers, starting from the engines and then moving to the parts and the shop visits. So we are lucky enough to have a brand new fleet. Almost the whole fleet is new. So for the time being, we are not dealing so much with MROs, maintenance providers for shop visits. Still, the fact that Sky Express grew through a period where airlines were reducing capacity, reducing orders, and postponed their fleet renewal programs, allowed us to create stronger partnerships and honest relationships with this kind of providers. What is the difficulty? The difficulty is unfortunately coming from the supply chain problems. So even though they commit, even though they promise, we understand and we acknowledge that sometimes it is impossible to deliver on time. So there we need to find a compromise. We need to, again, to discuss and to find a solution which is reasonable for everybody. The good thing is that we are not, I would say that even though our fleet is not that big, we are not being treated differently. We have managed and we have gained the respect, and we expect that to be further ranged to all our partners. This is where we stand at the moment. This is they know very well the growth plan of the airline, and therefore most of these partners are always willing to discuss, to update a contract which may be in place, but it could reflect the size of an airline without an Airbus fleet. We went very quickly into this change. The capacity that was added since 2019 and prior to that has been enormous. So we believe in partnerships. We have our external stakeholders. We make them happy because we grow, they grow along with us. And if we speak about stakeholders, we should not forget our internal stakeholders, our people. Now, the airline has managed over these last 18 months to integrate a different fleet and a new set of ATRs. So one part is the technicians, another part is the structure on our ground operations and on our flight operations. You can imagine that by adding 9 Airbuses, half of our staff is currently cabin crew members. So we grow a lot. We need to be able to manage all these people. We need to manage also their expectations, and we need to stand up to their expectations. This is not given. We need also to create processes, to give clear guidelines, and at the same time be able to treat each and everyone as an individual and as a personality which needs to be obviously respected, and considering their added value to the airline and to the fact that even though we enter into maybe a season which might be lower than what was anticipated for different reasons, the summer will come. We will be again in need of each and every one.
Thank you so much. And Trunaru, in management theory, we keep talking about different leadership styles. So sometimes managers are quite tough, acting as enlightened dictators or just dictators. In some other cases, we talk about participative management, where leaders would always listen to what the staff have to say. Now, if we take that at a CAA level, CAA is obviously the regulator, they have the market oversight. Do you think that they should act as enlightened dictators? Do you think that they should be more as facilitators in terms of stakeholder management in the aviation sector? What's your opinion?
Well, there are two aspects on that. In terms of internal businesses of the authority, a little bit of dictatorship doesn't hurt so much. In terms of the aviation market, it's not good enough. You have to be, let's say, a partner for the organization. is not so obvious, but the stronger the organization you have, the more trust you build in the travelers. So the traveler itself doesn't see you as an authority as much in front of him. He sees the operators, whatever they are. But the thing that they trust the operator might be a response of what you are saying to them and how you are working with them. Everybody says that, okay, we are making audits. Everybody said during the audit that we are not here at your facilities to tell you what is wrong with you. We are here to emphasize whatever we consider that may be improved, and then work together to find a solution. That's related to a question means for me that you have to be a partner. Okay, partner doesn't mean that you will take sides. The role of the authority is to ensure safety. But you have to understand their problems. You have to act to correct the situation in order to take into account their problems and promote them to the whatever agencies, governments, or whatever they are, to make them understand that they really have a problem, and to, let's say, work together with them, irrespective of if they are state-owned, private-owned, or such. You can see immediately when there's a change in the general policy, when there's a change in the government, you can see that the activity in the authority is slowing down. Fortunately, the authority has more technical persons. So even if the top management is sometimes, from time to time, changed, the lower management is more or less the same and has some continuity. And that builds trust between the person in the authority and the organizations.
Okay. Thank you so much. We have time for one or two questions from the floor. Okay, if not, may I kindly ask you to provide us with some key takeaways, Riccardo, from the discussion we had today?
Well, I think as we're discussing connectivity and regional connectivity, I think one of the things we need to be is more vocal about the impact of global decisions on our region, on our business, which is smaller, and anything which is grand impacts us more in terms of percentage-wise. It hurts us more, so we need to be able to communicate this so policies are adapted also take into account what we're doing here.
Thank you so much. George?
Allow me to go only into the passenger side, say that we are all storytellers. Each time they travel, they have a story to tell themselves afterwards. So we need to act together in the best way so that we ensure that this story will have a good ending, and that pretty soon they will want to travel again.
Thank you. Trunaru?
I will say that travelers need comfort. So in these harsh times, the connectivity is the main thing that provides much more comfort. So if you are doing that, you'll gain travelers.
Absolutely. So once again, a very insightful discussion. I would like to thank our esteemed guests, and let's give them an applause. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us throughout this session too. And now I would kindly ask both of the two important, let's say, personalities who made this conference possible here in Cluj to sum it up and to just have some conclusions of this conference, of the really important topics of civil aviation today that were discussed throughout the day, and which will remain as the main topics of the regional conference that we were really happy to be hosting here at Cluj International Airport. And I would just like to emphasize that I think in all of the speeches that we've heard so far, cooperation and connectivity remain as keywords, key taglines for everyone to go home today after the conference is done. And I would kindly ask first Kostas to say a few words, and then Andreas to wrap it up and give us, let's say, the conclusions which to take home with us. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Sorin. Thank all of you that you participate actively in this conference. This is the first edition, is the inaugural, as we said. I think everyone has agreed that connectivity and connecting the regions, connecting the dots is critical in all kind of societies, not only the big airports, but the small airports. Well, don't forget, in order to feed the hub, you need the regions, otherwise there is no hub. Therefore, having this connectivity is critical. I believe the decision to work with Cluj is the best case scenario, because we saw the evolution of traffic over the last 20 plus years, thanks to the leadership of David, but not only the team here, the work. They are all really a great team, and I'm really happy to be here. I feel like be at home, and I believe that the main takeaway that I like also is the partnership between the different stakeholders. We need that. We need more than we needed before COVID times. Then we need to continue to do this, and we need to actively work together in order to get there. I think there is a commitment from different parts of the air transport industry. We saw it with Airlines for Europe. We saw it from the airports. We saw it from the ground handler, but also from the authorities. Then it's a great start, I think, to launch this conference here. And once again, I would like to thank you for your passion and support to make this happen. A great event and a great team in Cluj, and Sorin, a really great job with your team. And I'm looking forward to work with you in the future. Sorin, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kostas. And now I will give the word to Professor to wrap this up and give us his last words on this.
Thank you so much, and once again, congratulations on the organization of this event. I'm sure this is just the first event of a series of potential events that can develop in this area. I think we had two very interesting panels with insightful discussions. The key takeaway is that we need to build a stronger narrative and communicate this narrative in a more effective way. But as I also said in my introduction, connectivity is of utmost importance, not only for the economy, but also from a social point of view. We keep talking about how bad social discrimination is. We all remember when we were confined in our homes, how depressed we were feeling about that. So connectivity is very important, and meeting our beloved ones very much relies on transport. So as an industry, we need to communicate this message quite effectively. Transport is a major income generator, major generator for employment. If we are to talk about airports, they can also act as growth engines. In economic geography, we talk about growth poles, development of airport cities and aerotropolis as well. Obviously, airports rely on airlines to keep moving people around. So beyond any supply chain conflicts, the airline-airport relationship is very important. Of course, we need the ground handlers in order to efficiently and seemingly run the supply chain. We also are very much in need of effective regulation and market oversight. Of course, there are environmental issues to consider. but we have to be realistic at the same time, and I think it's quite important for all aviation stakeholders to communicate the narrative that while everybody is trying to do their own bit and while everybody is trying to be as environmental friendly as possible and deal with issues related to decarbonization, climate change, and so on. At the same time, we need to be realistic about how easy or how difficult it's going to meet, whether we're going to be able to meet all these goals, and we have to be realistic about the time frame as well. So remember, we have to connect the whole narrative of about connectivity with the whole narrative about sustainability. Aviation is certainly doing very well in terms of the first two pillars, and they also need to convince politicians, environmental activists, other stakeholders as well, but they're doing the best in terms of meeting the environmental pillar as well, but at the same time everybody has to be realistic in terms of what can be achieved within a specific time frame and given all the geopolitical risks and challenges that we're currently facing. So once again, congratulations to the organizations, to Kostas, to David and his team for this lovely setting, and looking forward to staying in touch with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you, everyone, for your participation today in our conference. I would now like to invite you all to the farewell lunch, which will be held in the old terminal, just outside the arrivals terminal. And just to wrap it up, I also want to invite those of you who will be still remaining in the city today. We have a classical musical concert just to end this conference this evening at 7 o'clock at the local Gheorghe Dima National Music Academy downtown. So we invite you all to take part in this concert as well. And thank you again for your presence and participation to this lovely conference. Thank you.